Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. How many times over the last few months have we seen headlines like this? Rogue Squadron once again is in the news. What was meant to be the next Star Wars movie after The Rise of Skywalker by Patty Jenkins was indefinitely delayed, and this was widely believed to be due to creative differences, but then there was a little bit of hope when Kathleen Kennedy came out and said it's backlogged but still happening. But now my dear friends, we have a more definitive response from Disney. They have finally and officially removed Rogue Squadron from their release calendar, while instead adding dates for Snow White, Inside Out 2, and the next Lion King film, Mufasa. Now you could argue that the move is surprising since the tentpole, which was scheduled for next December, was taken off the studio's production schedule last year. The announcement is more or less pro forma, as the window for Rogue Squadron to start filming in time to complete the movie by next year has come and gone, and we pretty much knew all the way back in November of last year that there was going to be a problem with this film. We once again find ourselves without clarity on the next Star Wars movie, but at least for this one, for all intents and purposes, it's been scrapped. But we've got to ask ourselves, is anything really lost here? For one thing, we knew nothing about the plot, and even when it was announced, it's not as if there was huge excitement for this movie. It was marketed as a one-and-done spin-off in a new time period of the galaxy that would have presumably been focused on an X-Wing pilot protagonist, not to mention silence from Lucasfilm, who never really gave us a reason to care. And on top of all of that, some fans were apprehensive about the director, following the at-the-time reception to Wonder Woman 1984, so a lot of factors made a bunch of Star Wars fans shrug their shoulders about this movie. But I suppose it's not fair to judge, considering we have no idea what the story was that Patty Jenkins pitched to Lucasfilm, and I suppose at this stage, we never will know. And so now, my dear Megalorians, even more casting news for the Acolyte, and this one in my opinion is just as exciting as Lee Jung-jae and Amandla Stenberg. Former The Good Place star Manny Jacinto has been cast opposite Amandla Stenberg in Disney Plus's upcoming series The Acolyte. As with a lot of these castings, we don't know who his character is, we don't even have a name, so it's all being kept under wraps. That is pretty much all we know about this. And so moving swiftly on, it's time to talk about Yoda. One of the things from Star Wars Celebration back in May that went under the radar was the announcement of a series of Yoda comics. The first issue comes out in November, and it's a really exciting prospect because this is the closest we'll ever get to a Yoda backstory. The comics focus on Yoda just before Luke shows up in The Empire Strikes Back, but it's going to be full of flashbacks to various points of his 900-year life. And while I doubt they're going to show us his mysterious homeworld or give us details of his species, things which are sacred to George Lucas and Dave Filoni, we might learn some other secrets of Yoda's past. And the reason I even bring this up is because StarWars.com have provided an official preview of the first two issues, including variant covers. We see Yoda meditating in the Force, as well as a really unique shot of him playing a relaxing musical instrument. There are just so many unknowns in the life of one of the most iconic Jedi Masters that ever lived, and thanks to the new comic series, we're gonna get a little glimpse at it. Who knows, with any luck they'll confirm if he was related to Grogu. And so finally guys, with 5 days to go until the Andor series, we need to talk about some new comments made by Tony Gilroy. Now while the series has been marketed as giving us something very new, something very fresh in the franchise, he seems to have inadvertently confirmed that the Andor show does have some characters we know. But he makes it clear that when they appear, it's not done for fan service, but rather to serve the story. Basically Star Wars storytelling done right, in an exciting way that fans can look forward to. Let's dive into it. This comes from the New York Times. Can Tony Gilroy bring new hope to Star Wars? The Michael Clayton and Bourne legacy filmmaker returns to the world he helped establish in Rogue One with a new Disney Plus series, Andor. So let's see what they said. It's a strange time for Star Wars. Quiet at movie theatres since the 2019 release of The Rise of Skywalker, the mighty science fiction series has been carried forward by streaming shows like The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, in which characters old and new mingle in adventures that occasionally fill in gaps in the franchise's master narrative. The latest Star Wars show, Andor, adds to the sense of strangeness by not following this pattern, and in my opinion guys, I think that's why it's going to be amazing. It's just not following the same structure. Okay, let's get back to this. It traces the life of Cassian Andor, the rebel spy played by Diego Luna, along the rough and tumble trajectory that will eventually lead him to the desperate act of espionage he helps carry out against the Galactic Empire in the 2016 film Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. At least at its outset, Andor is a show that is less interested in lightsaber duels than in the details of day-to-day life on distant planets, the Byzantine bureaucracies needed to run the galaxy, and the conflicts that arise in these organizations. So let's fast forward to the big questions. Tony Gilroy was asked, what did you realise you could do with Star Wars? And he says, it's a host organism for anything really. After Rogue, with all the endorphins that were in the air in that moment, I remember having a conversation with Kathy and she said, we can do anything. I would say, what do you mean by anything? If I wanted to do Inherit the Wind in Star Wars, could I do that? And oh my god, we could. We could do a hospital show in Star Wars. How many beings exist in that galaxy? All those plumbers and farmers and anesthesiologists, they all have lives. Is this a real place or is it some phony thing? If it is a real place, we can do real things. Then it has the added advantage of an audience. And Tony's comments are really interesting because typically in Star Wars it's the novels, the games, the comics, those forms of media that explore the everyday life of Star Wars characters. But on the big screen and the small screen, whether it's the TV shows or the movies, it's always about the big players in this game, the Skywalkers, or what Tony Gilroy calls the royal family of Star Wars, but never the everyday people, and this show is going to change that. And so then we move on to the bit about the legacy characters. New York Times asks, from what I've seen so far, there are no obvious efforts in Andor to include the marquee Star Wars characters or to mention their exploits. Was that a deliberate choice on your part? And he says, like I said, the galaxy is enormous. It would be like if you tried to tell the whole story of 20th century England just through the crown. He says, oh, there's only this royal family, these 7 people, their lineage and who they're, that's all that matters. He says we will not be dealing with the royal family of Star Wars, but when we do have legacy characters return, notice he says when and not if, or when we touch on things that are familiar, we don't want to do it in a way that would be perceived as fan service, we want it to be protein. And this is a truly excellent comment, because it tells us we might see some familiar faces, but they're not just thrown in there. And of course, following the rumours of Tamara Morrison's involvement, this gives me great hope we might see a clone or two in this show. But they're there because of the story, not because of fan service. And so finally, another huge thing he's asked is how he thinks the audience is going to respond to the show, what we as the fandom are going to think of his choices as a writer. Tony says that part is really potent. Another reason to do it is everything that comes off my desk gets shot, and it gets shot with some of the greatest actors on the planet, with a bunch of really great directors. I've worked just as hard every day for the last 40 years on everything, and probably 80% of that material that I've written, probably the best things I've ever written, has been thrown away over the years. This is not that. It's 650 pages of shootable script for the first part, and I'm so in the zone to be old, not old, but I'm seasoned. I love Tony's confidence. Some fans have said he's arrogant, but I don't think so. I think he and Diego Luna genuinely realise just how good this show is, and it turned out better than they thought. I'm so excited, guys, I can't tell you just how much. A great interview with some great insight. We always learn something new with him. And so just before I go, guys, one of my big predictions for the Andor show might have come true. Yesterday was the press premiere for Andor, and Erin Kellyman, who played Enfys Nest in Solo, was spotted. After Star Wars Celebration back in May, I made a whole video explaining why I think she's going to appear in the series. And here we have the biggest clue yet. Fingers crossed, I think it's going to be a great one. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. What did you make of Tony Gilroy's comments, the Rogue Squadron news, and everything we spoke about in today's video? If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, follow me on Twitter at StarWarsMeg1, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you always.